Okay, I will start the webinar. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Kabir, and I'm with Battle River Research Group. I will be your host today. Today we have Caitlin Kessan. I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions during the presentation, please hold them until the very end. We will have 15 minutes for Q&A session. However, if something urgent comes up, you need my help during the webinar, feel free to type it in the chat section. I will be keeping an eye on it throughout the session. Without further ado, let's begin our today's webinar. And now please join me in welcoming our special guest speaker. Over to you, Caitlin.
Awesome. Well, thank you for
Are you
yes.
there?
Can you hear me? Can- Oh,
Caitlin, uh, can you hear me now?
yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think so. You froze for a second
Okay,
then.
perfect.
Yeah,
Well, thank
yeah.
you everybody for joining us today. And thank you to the Battle River Research Group for inviting me to present. So today we're going to be talking about recharging your battery and prioritizing mental health. Um, if you want to let me know in the chat where you're joining us from today, that would be great. Just kind of knowing who my audience is. And I also understand that this is being live streamed on YouTube as well as recorded for people who couldn't join us today. So, a little bit about me. So I'm Caitlin Kitsan. I grew up on a farm in East Central Saskatchewan. We've got grain and cattle, and I'm still actively involved in our family farm. Went away, got my Bachelor of Science in Agribusiness degree from the University of Saskatchewan. Spent 8 years in Saskatoon working for Glacier Farm Media and the government of Saskatchewan. But 2 years ago, I decided to move home for a few different reasons, but primarily to be closer to the family, closer to the farm. Um, and it's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. So, kind of the picture in the middle here is a family of my mom, my dad, and my older brother. And then in the bottom corner is our farm crew. And you'll notice that I am the only female on the farm crew. So, when I moved home to be more active on the farm, there was lots of learnings that we all kind of had to learn how to work, men, female, but also through the generations as we have an 80-year-old combine operator all the way down to a 14-year-old working on our farm. So lots of the stories and things that I share today kind of come from my experience working on a multi-generation farm, farming with family, and just some of the how everything comes to be. Um, I also share from the experience of my own, mental health and growing up, I was, involved in everything. I played every sport, was on every single club, and it was later kind of in my university life that I, was diagnosed with anxiety and learning how to manage that, on the farm, being a business and entrepreneur, just some of those life experiences. This is my favorite shirt. So when I saw this shirt while I was shopping this winter during Christmas time, I had to buy it because most days I come and do these presentations or I'm on the road doing events and everybody thinks that I am, this smiley, person who has, it all figured out. But most days in my mind, this is what's going on. I'm fine. It's fine. Everything is fine. But my mind is mostly like those Christmas lights that are all tangled. So, who is Do More Agriculture? So, I've worked with the Do More Agriculture Foundation for 2 years now. So, we're the national voice for the national voice charity for mental health in agriculture. And we kind of have three pillars that we spend time on. So, the first one is action. This our pillar used to be awareness, but we've identified that awareness is not enough. And we need to start taking action to breaking that stigma and having those conversations about mental health in rural communities. The next pillar is our community. And if this is either building community, virtually through some of our virtual platforms that I'll talk a little bit about later, or in person through our community fund, hosting in-person workshops, speaking engagements, events. And then our third pillar is the resources. And I'll talk about some of the resources that we have later in the presentation. So I always like to start with some stats and kind of why the Do More Agriculture Foundation needs to exist and why we still exist. So 53% of agriculture producers meet the classification for depression. So that is half of our farmers in Canada. And 71% of agriculture producers meet the classification for anxiety. That's almost three-quarters of our farmers in Canada. That just kind of sets the stage of where we're going to go kind of from here. So stigma, this is a word that we use a lot. And I truly believe stigma can lead people to silence. And so one of our, pillars is action. And it's really action to break that stigma. The common saying of like, you're not alone. But what we've identified in rural communities, it's, this person is sick, they've got mental health issues, they need to, be alone to get better. But really, we need to rally that rural community. We need to rally the community around them to help them. And, this is the conversation we're going to talk a little bit about breaking that stigma. Before I also kind of get into some of the nuts and bolts of the presentation, I also like to kind of pause and remind people that there's difference between mental health, illness, and mental well-being. Because sometimes when we're talking about this topic, all three of these can get intertwined and it can become quite confusing. So, everyone has mental health just like everyone has health. And I know sometimes in my family, I'm like, I don't understand. We never call it physical health. How's your physical health? But we always say, how's your mental health? And, trying to change that conversation is how's your health, which can incorporate physical and mental. So, in the course of a lifetime, not all people will experience a mental illness, but everyone will struggle or have a challenge with their mental health, just like we all have challenges with our physical well-being from time to time. So on the farm, and especially at the coffee shops, I know in my small town, we all talk about the weather, we all talk about the yields and the markets, but mental health isn't always a part of the conversation. However, it should be, because a healthy mind is just as important as a healthy crop. So how do we make it a part of the conversation? And, when I moved back to the farm, this was one thing, 2 years ago, if I asked anybody, how's your mental health or how are you doing? I probably would have had some backs up against the wall because it's just not a conversation that most people in agriculture and, I would say most men don't want to talk about or have that conversation. And so we had to get a little fun and we had to figure out how can we relate with those people in our life who maybe come from an agriculture background. And so the question that, came to me is how many batteries do you have on your farm or your workplace? So on our farm, we've got tractors that have batteries. We have trucks that have batteries. We have cell phones that have batteries, combines, tools. They all have batteries and you have many, many, many batteries on your farm. And when a battery dies, what do? We have to charge the battery and hopefully we're charging the battery before it dies. But what is the most important asset on the farm? So when you think about like what is the most important thing on your farm, it's the people. Because the people run the farm. So it's you, it's your employees, it's your family members. Without people, there is no farm. So I like to think about our mind being a battery. So we've created this chart that I recommend to print off, put it in your shops, put it in your workplaces. But think about your mind as a battery. So when your battery is at 80 to 100% fully charged, you're healthy, right? You can focus on tasks. You can break problems into manageable tasks. You have control, deep breathing. You nurture a support system. You are like I'm ready to tackle whatever today brings at me. And that's where we all want to be all the time. But I don't think any one of us are always there. So if you kind of go into maybe the yellow, the 50 to the 80%, you're kind of in that reacting mode. And probably in busy season, seeding, harvest, calving, you're going to be in that 80 to 50%. So you can recognize limits, but you need to take breaks. It's important to be getting rest and food and exercise. Um, you know, this is kind of lower energy. You're maybe just not your game, but it's easy enough to kind of recharge your battery. When you get into the injured or your illness state, so you kind of go 50% under, this is when things become a little bit that maybe you need more professional help and it's going to take longer to recharge your battery. So you kind of want to stay 50% over when we think about your battery. And we're going to talk a little bit about this further. So what level is your battery right now? And so I just want to take a second for everybody to think about this. Where is your battery right now? When I think about where my battery is right now, I would say I'm about 75%. This is a slower week for me for work. So I've been getting quite a bit of rest. I've been able to exercise. I've been eating pretty healthy. But I'm not quite fully charged because I've got a lot still on my to-do list, a lot of things to get ready for 3 weeks of travel that's coming up. Um, you know, if I ask myself, probably after 3 weeks of travel and events, I might be down more to 60%. So I'm really prioritizing this week. How am I charging my battery to get as fully charged as I potentially can before I go into 3 weeks of chaos? So, things that I have to ask myself is how do I charge your battery? So, how do you charge your phone battery? You probably have a cord by your bed table and you plug it in every night. How do you charge your truck battery if it dies? You might connect it to another vehicle to charge it, right? Everything's got a different cord or a different way to charge the battery. So everybody charges their battery differently. So how I charge my battery won't be the same as how you charge your battery. So for some people, it's sleep. They need to make sure that they get enough sleep to charge their battery. Sometimes it's exercise. Sometimes it is social interaction and connection, healthy eating. Maybe it's hobbies, maybe it's painting, maybe it's photography or other creative hobbies you might have. Maybe it's some meditation or quiet time. Maybe it's spending time with a loved one or getting support from a counselor or therapist. Maybe it's gardening and being with flowers in the soil. So it's important to kind of figure out very quickly where your battery is and how you charge it. Because if you don't know how to charge your battery, when your battery starts to deplete, you won't know what to do. So personally, I charge my battery by sleep. So when I'm on the go, when I'm running from an event to an event to an event, I'm not getting enough sleep. So I'm depleting my battery. This week is a quieter week for me. So I'm really prioritizing sleep, making sure I'm getting 8 hours of sleep, really making sure I'm kind of counting those hours and making sure I'm charging my battery that way. I also charge my battery by exercise. I need to move my body. It just really helps me. So once you understand how you charge your battery, it's also really helpful to understand how your family charges their battery so you can support them. So for my mom, she charges her battery by being with her flowers and her garden. She likes her quiet time with her animals, spending time with her family. And so we know if my mom's really busy and she needs time to kind of to herself, she's going to spend time with her flowers. My dad, after a long day, he really enjoys sitting on the couch, watching TV, watching the news with some snacks before he goes to bed. That's kind of his quiet time, his time to really just rest, relax, and kind of recharge. My brother, he's a runner. He likes to run, and that, allows him to recharge his battery. And so we notice in busy times when my mom's working a lot, she's not spending time outside with her flowers. Or if my dad's, putting in really long days and he's not getting home till, too late to watch TV and he's not getting his time. Or if my brother's, working really long days too and he's not getting to run, we're seeing that battery deplete without that time to recharge it. Once you understand how you charge your battery and your family charges your battery, it's important to understand how your employees charge your battery. So, we have certain people on our crew. It's, eating nutritious food allows them to be the best employees they potentially can be. Some of our employees, or most of our employees, it's sleep, right? So on our farm, we don't run 24-hour shifts because we believe everybody deserves, a good night rest of sleep every night. So once you configure this out, you can be really impactful to people in your life because if you see that their battery is depleting, you can suggest, hey, maybe you should come in an hour later so you have time to go for a run in the morning. Or, hey, how about you leave an hour earlier? Or, hey, I really think you need to make time in the next few days to do this because I know it's something that, really helps you. So just going back to kind of this chart, it's just so important to kind of understand the symptoms and where you'll see people at the different levels of their battery. So before I move on, and I'm like going really fast, this is a great analogy that I would recommend. You can use it. I'm using it like on our farm, but I also know people who use it with their kids. I know people who use it in their workplace, kind of any, part of your life that you're interacting with people. It's a great way to be able to talk about mental health in a way that's maybe not saying, how's your mental health doing? Or like, how are you doing? It just kind of is an easier way to talk about mental health. Where's your battery at? And my whole goal with this is I want people to be able to ask this question without that stigma that is tied to mental health. So what is burnout? And lots of my friends laugh when, Caitlin's doing a presentation on preventing burnout because I am the girl who gets burnt out quite frequently because I think I can do everything all the time. And then I get sick and I'm not productive at all. So, I think it's important for me to do this presentation because every time I do it, I learn something new or it gives myself a reminder that this presentation is just as much for you as it is for me. So, what is burnout? So, burnout is more than just feeling tired at the farm. Burnout is an emotional, mental, and physical reaction to constant stress in your life. So, possible causes of burnout, there's so many causes. We could have probably 500 and we would still think of one on this to put on this slide. But I really focused my possible causes to ones that I see mostly with farmers or people who work in the agriculture sector. So, financial pressures, we all know input costs are going up. Our margin on our farm is becoming a lot slimmer. Work-life imbalance. We're going to talk about this later, but we know most farmers don't have ideal work-life balance. And that's, the way of life of being a farmer. Lack of social support, again, in rural communities, we see that. Extremes of activity, dysfunctional workplace dynamics. I think this one can relate to many people. I think we've all, once upon a time, probably worked in a dysfunctional workplace. And then lack of control. And, farmers, we don't control the weather, we don't control the markets. And those are the two, in my opinion, two of the biggest things that cause a lot of stress on farms. So some signs to look for, again, many different signs, but these are some that we see, mostly in agriculture. So constant fatigue. This is one for me. I'm always tired, it seems like, and I really need to, take a day off and catch up on rest. irritable. This is one that I see, in my father when it doesn't matter what you say or what you do, he's going to be irritable. Decreased motivation. I must like that one so much that it's on twice on this slide. Neglecting self-care. So somebody who, always brushes their hair and brushes their teeth and, just some of the basics. If you've noticed, if they forget one day, but if they continuously, are missing some of those self-care practices. And then physical symptoms. I get head colds. So when I'm burnt out, I get sick. I get a head cold, and I know I used to blame it on my immunity system or germs or whatever, but I always get them after um, being really, really busy and putting in long hours for a few weeks. So that's one that I get. Some farm specific ones, routine changes. So if somebody always comes to Coffee Row and they've stopped coming to Coffee Row or they stopped going to church on Sunday, those are, big signs. Farmstead appearance, I'm sure we all have that neighbor whose yard is perfect. It is trimmed to the T. If you've noticed that, their farmstead is just, not up to par. And again, not just because they're a few days late or whatever, but if it's, really kind of noticeable over kind of a few weeks, that could be one. Frequent illness, which we talked about, rise in safety incidents. Um, on our farm, we had one spring where we were, running short staffed. Everybody was doing multiple jobs. We were running long hours. And that spring we saw lots of safety incidents just because we knew we were pushing everybody a little bit too hard. Loss of interest. This is one that I would say my dad, we're selling the farm, we're selling the cows. I don't want to farm anymore, but I truly know that he's going to probably die in a combine because he loves farming so much. And then animal care. And there's some really interesting studies coming out of Europe right now that I'm following that shows, animal health and the connection to mental health with the farmer and, what that will, healthy mind equals healthy animal, not healthy mind equals not healthy animal. And just some of the correlations between that, between the two have been quite interesting. So how to prevent burnout in busy seasons and how to keep your battery charged. And you're probably not going to have 100% fully charged battery during seeding, harvest, calving, any of the busy times. I think though it's important to plan outside of the busy season. So you can't go into the busy seasons and, try to implement some of these practices then. You've got to start now, leading up to the busy seasons. So for me, it's staying connected. I'm very well connected with my family during the busy seasons because I see them every single day on the farm. So I don't need to stay more connected with them. But for me, it's staying connected with friends. Usually during the busy seasons, I start to ignore them and because I'm just so busy. But now I try to make a, point of if it's once a week, reaching out to them and just having some outside connection outside of the people who I'm working with every single day. Take short breaks. So this might be I know many farms used to stop for supper and have supper in the field, but now it's all about productivity and how much can you do in a day. And so they're doing supper on the go. But sometimes I think you're more productive if you can take 15 minutes and, get out of the combine and just take a little bit of a break. Practice mindfulness. This was one, so whenever I was driving, so this is for anybody, but if I was driving anywhere for work, I always had a podcast on, a radio on, music on. I was singing karaoke. I was always like just busy, busy, busy. And what I've realized is I'm enjoying more being in silence while driving and just giving time to think and to be present in my own body. And so that's one that I've been working on sometimes in the combine. I even shut off the radio after I just need a break from all the gossip stories that happen sometimes on the radio. Prioritize rest. So, during the busy seasons, we try to kind of take turns so everybody can maybe have one earlier night to get home and, get some good sleep, which I know is really hard. Healthy eating. I'm the worst, but when I'm really busy, I start eating whatever I can find or what can I pick up at a gas station. So if you can pre-plan, if you do any meal prepping, freezer meals, I know some of the guys on our farm, they've got a lady who cooks them home cooked meals and they're frozen and they can just pull them out. So prioritizing kind of your nutrition and then seeking support. Um, I have a friend who, canceled seeing his counselor and therapist during, harvest and seeding because he's like, I don't have time to spend an hour going to an appointment. Um, but then realized that that hour appointment for that month was what was going to get him through those busy seasons. And, there's virtual things now. So if you can't make it into town, that phone call, that virtual meeting is worth taking an hour away to make sure that you're the best person you can be during those busy seasons. So one thing that, I am still learning, but I have this kind of in my office here printed on my billboard is I've always been a yes girl. I say yes to everything, volunteering, family, friends, work. And it's funny because the first word I think you learn when you're born is no. But it's the hardest word to say right now for many people. I know I'm not alone on this one. And so I'm learning if it's not a hell yes, then it is a no. And even my volunteer commitments, I've really had to look at them and, say if this is not something that I truly love doing, then I need to save my time. Because I think when we look at everybody, the most precious resource we have is our time. And especially as a female or as a woman, we give our time away like it's free. And we have to learn to kind of change that narrative. So this is one that I try to live by most days. Um, I also like to talk because, when I've done this presentation in person, people are like, Caitlin, stress is a part of being a farmer. And I don't disagree. So I always ask, who thinks stress can be a positive thing? And the answer is yes. Stress can be a positive thing. And we call this kind of the stress curve. So, when we look at performance and we look at stress, so if you're high stress, you're going to have low performance. So too much stress, high anxiety, poor performance. But if you have too little of stress, low motivation, poor performance. This is when I'm like laying on the couch watching Netflix for days on end and I'm not being productive at all. And so it's really hard, but you have to try to find that moderate stress where you're alert, engaged, challenged, and you're kind of reaching that optimal performance. And you have to figure what that is for you. This is one of my favorite quotes that I also like to share. It's from Brené Brown, but something else that I had to learn when I started my own business 2 years ago was daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves even when we risk disappointing others. And maybe just, further on this one, when I started my business, I allowed everybody to walk kind of right over me. I would answer the phone at 5 a.m. on a Sunday, 11 p.m. on a Friday. Whenever anybody would call or reach out, I would answer the phone. But I soon realized that that was not going to be sustainable for myself. And I had to learn how to set those boundaries around, I'm available this day to this day, from this time to this time. If you need me after, this is how you reach me. And, there's always, things that come up that are very urgent matters and need my attention outside of normal business hours. But how you create those boundaries, I think, are so important. And it's something that I wish I would have created in the beginning of my business. And it didn't take me 18 months after, because I think it would have saved a lot of additional stress that I didn't need. And, as farmers or people in agriculture, when I talk about boundaries, many people think of a fence and they're like, oh, like you're telling me to build a fence around my property. Well, no, but I'm talking about, boundaries around your personal space. So if you're not a hugger, you're allowed to have boundaries that, if you don't want to be hugged, you don't have to be hugged. Creating boundaries around your emotions and thoughts, your stuff and possessions, your culture, religion, and ethics. And the one that I think is the hardest to create a boundary around is your time and energy, because we like to give our time and energy away for free. So, I personally don't like the word work-life balance. I think it is a stupid word, and I believe in work-life sway. So I'm at a point in my life where work is taking up most of my time and I'm okay with it. I love the work that I do. I love the clients that I get to work with. And so I don't have work-life balance and I'm okay with that because maybe eventually my life is going to need more of me. If I decide to settle down and have kids, or if I have aging parents who need, more of my time, then I might put more energy and time into life. And so I think it's, figuring out what that sway is for you. Does work need you more? Does life need you more? But don't try to find that balance for you because you're going to sway back and forth, and that's okay. Something else that I had to learn that really helped me, to prevent burnout is understanding what is in my control and what is outside of my control. And, using this kind of as a tool in my toolbox. And so when feel very overwhelmed, sometimes I, take a sticky note because I always have sticky notes around me. And I create a list of everything that's on my mind or everything I'm worried about. And then I go and cross off the things I can't control, right? And usually on that list, three-quarters of things I can't control. I can't control what others do. I can't control the weather. I can't control the markets. I can't control federal government or provincial government policies. Those are things that I can't control. And then it gets my list down to a quarter, and I deal with those things that I can control, the things that I can actually make a difference, the things that I can, um, you know, get off that list. So this is one thing that my dad and I have the same personality. And so when he's stressing about something or yelling about something, and I just say, can you control this? And he knows that now. But I'm like, if you can't control it, you got to let it go. And it's just one thing that, we talk quite frequently about on our farm and in our family. So what does support look like? Support can look like many different ways. One thing that I always like to say is you have to support within your means. So I am not a mental health counselor, a therapist, psychologist. And so if I think somebody is mentally ill and they, are that 20% under on their battery, I am going to get them professional help that they need. So you have to understand where you can support and where you can help and where you can't, but you can help get them the resources or the support they do need. I also like to say you can't pour from an empty cup. So you have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and not just supporting others. So while you're supporting others, make sure you're also supporting yourself. So support can look very different. Start with a simple question. In our family, on our farm, it is, where's your battery at? How's your battery doing? Where's your battery charged to? That's, the simple question that we start with. Share a meal or coffee. I think, sharing food brings people together. Food starts conversation. It's a great way to grab a coffee with somebody. Be present. Um, this is a hard one, but in today's society with these phones, it's so easy to be kind of listening, but also being on a phone with somebody. So try to be present, be in that moment. If you do, ask somebody, where's your battery at? And they're like, you know what, I'm 60%, but I've got some plans to get that, charge my battery. Follow up in a day, later that day, whatever you think is appropriate. Just say, hey, just wanted to check in to see where your battery's at. That follow-up is so crucial. And then offer help or offer to connect them with the help that they need. We've already talked about supporting within your means. Got a little ahead of my presentation there, but just to say you can't pour from an empty cup. Make sure that you're also filling your cup, and make sure that you're supporting within your means and where you feel comfortable is important. So when to ask or point for help. So earlier is better. So like all illnesses left untreated, they get worse and more difficult to treat. A certified professional is best, so a registered social worker or a psychotherapist, and understand when you need to make that connection. And, one thing that we also like to talk about is when to call 911. So if you feel like the person is at immediate risk of harm to themselves or someone else, or if they've communicated to you that they intend to commit suicide, please call 911. Growing up, I know we made comments like, oh, like, I wish I was dead, or, there's jokes out there like, oh, we need to stop that. It's not, it's you can't treat it as a joke because as soon as somebody says suicide, we need to look at, calling 911, and, they can do a wellness check. So if anyone gives you just cause to be concerned about their well-being, the police are able to attend to do a wellness check. And I always say, better safe than sorry because I have somebody very close to me who took it as a joke, and unfortunately, we don't have that person with us anymore. So if you have any concern, you know, I would ask that you would call 911 and do a wellness check. Something else that I like to cover in this presentation is difficult situations on the farm. So if you work in agriculture or if you work on a farm, and if you have not faced a difficult situation, or even if you're in a workplace and you have not dealt with a difficult situation, I want to come to your workplace because I feel like I deal with a difficult situation almost daily. Um, and I was not really good at dealing with these things till I did some conflict resolution courses, which have helped me. But a few things on, our farm, and this is another great little graphic to print and put somewhere, is to stay calm. And I know you're like, it's the hardest thing to do, but try to stay calm, try to breathe. Another hard one for me to do is listen without interrupting. I think I should have been a lawyer, but I'm not. But I love to interrupt people. And so sometimes I have to like bite my tongue and you have to really listen without trying to like interject and put my viewpoint in. Acknowledge emotions. Um, I can see that you're upset. I see that, right? I see that you're frustrated. Acknowledge those emotions, and use I statements, not you did this, you did that, or you made me do this, or you made me feel like that. But I feel concerned when I am frustrated, when I am angry, when, and really try to start every statement with I. Take a break if needed. Sometimes I just need to walk away and then come back. You just need time to get calm. And if you're need to go for a little walk, you need to do a breathe, you need to say, you know what, let's reconnect in 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever time you need. But also don't, a break doesn't mean days and you never deal with the situation either. But it's okay to take some time to regroup. And handling those high emotions with care will, foster understanding and stronger relationships. And I think it's just so important in the workplace, at home, wherever you are, is to learn how to handle difficult situations. So a few of the resources that the Do More Agriculture Foundation offers. So one is Ag Talk. So this is an app on your phone. It's anonymous, it's free, it's moderated 24/7 by clinicians, and it's available for everybody in Canadian agriculture. So thanks to BASF, RBC, and the McCain's Foundation who allows us to have this app. But this is a great way. It's almost like Ag Twitter, but in a safe space because egg Twitter can get mean very quickly. So it's just a great opportunity to connect with other people in Canadian agriculture, kind of in a safe space. So highly recommend you checking out that resource if you haven't yet. We also have these mental health support stickers, and we like to put these, on grain bins, in tractors, in shops, wherever you might want them. You can get them on our website, or I can mail some out for you guys. We started a really cool partnership with ACO, so all of their tractors are actually going to have these stickers in them. And it's just, if somebody needs help and they're sitting in a tractor, they're able to scan and it connects them with the closest mental health crisis line, wherever they are. We have so many resources on our website, so check it out. We've got blog posts and hey, are you okay? Kind of a quick quiz to do a self-assessment. So make sure you check out our website there as well. So I just want to, again, thank the Battle River Research Group for hosting me today. That is my email. If you have any questions for me, happy to answer them now, or if you want to ask them to me in private, send me an email and happy to connect. If you're attending Egg in Motion next week, I will be there. And if you're attending Egg Smart in 2 weeks at the end of July, I'll also be in Olds for that event. And we're hosting our new documentary screening, Deep Rooted, at both of those events. So it's a 33-minute documentary on mental health in agriculture that we're pretty excited about. So, um, oh, one more resource that I just wanted to quickly talk to you guys about, sorry, is our Talk It Out card game. So you can buy this game on our website, but what I love about it, it's Talk, Ask, Listen, and there's like 200 and some different cards in it, and they all have a different question on them. And so I use this as an icebreaker for in-person meetings or virtual meetings, toolbox talks on the farm. Um, yeah, they're just, or even my friends bug me, but I'll bring it to like if friends are getting together in an evening, I'll bring our card game and they're fun little questions to get to know people and get people talking a little bit more. So, yeah, with that, I am going to pass it back to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Caitlin, for that insightful presentation. Now we will open the floor for Q&A. If anybody wants to have any questions, they can write it in the Q&A box, or there's someone who doesn't like typing, they can always click on raise hand and I can allow them to talk. Perfect. Is there anything else you want to add on until unless people are typing?
No, I don't think so. If you
Yeah,
are a farmer, if you work in an ag workplace and you want some tools and resources, we've got stickers, we've got postcards. Please email me and more than happy to send out some resources to you to have in your workplace or on your farm. Yeah, that would be kind of my closing comments. But yeah, just thank you again for having me.
perfect. And do you know where you can buy that card game you were just showing
On our website. So if you go to
on
the
your
Deep
website?
Agriculture Foundation website, you can buy it. So talk is so just a poll one. So talk is a question that you would ask your group. What TV show do you think I watch? My favorite is Yellowstone, in case anybody was wondering. And then ask is when you get to ask somebody a question. So do you feel like you can depend on those closest to you? So they get a little bit harder questions. And then listen is it's kind of similar, but what's a topic that is hard for you to talk about and why? So but there's ones that are like if I was an ice cream flavor, what kind of ice cream flavor do you think I would be? So I highly recommend don't tell anybody vanilla because they get offended. I told my friend that she would be vanilla and then she thought she was plain. So don't say vanilla. But yeah, it's a fun little game that's good for workplaces.
Perfect. Are there any questions? I guess let's wait another minute, and if there's no questions, I guess people normally are a
I'll
little bit shy and normally in the mental health workshops or webinars.
That's okay. They can reach out to me
Yeah.
individually. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Let's wait for another minute. If there aren't any questions, then we can wrap it up. Is there anything else like you
Um,
want to add on or
I would say check out our website too for we've got lots of events coming up, different workshops. So one might be in your area. So yeah, and we've got a newsletter that goes out monthly. So make sure you go to our website and sign up for our newsletter. It's always got some great resources in there as well. And yeah,
okay.
and I see Karen's vet tech and vet
Yeah.
social work student, which is very interesting, Karen.
Yeah.
Um,
Samantha says there's no questions, but just wanted to thank you. Awesome presentation.
awesome. Thank you, Samantha.
Yeah, I guess then there's no questions. I guess you did an amazing job.
Perfect. I get off
Yeah.
easy. So I'm okay with that.
Perfect. Okay, I will wrap it up. Thank you so much, Caitlin, for an excellent presentation. It was truly a pleasure to have you with us today. That brings an end to our webinar. Thank you all for attending. We hope you found this webinar informative and useful and enjoyed the discussion. If you have any feedback or any suggestions, can feel free to send me an email, or if you have any questions, you guys do have Caitlin's email. Feel free to send her an email, or you can always send me an email if anything you want me to pass it on. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, have a good day.